Well, hi everyone. This is Stephanie again from the Baldwin County Homeschool Expo, and we have some awesome ladies here to talk to us about homeschooling with special needs. And we have Miss Heather and Miss Elise and Devin, and so we have a lot of people have been reaching out because they're new to homeschooling and they're not sure what to do, and they have a special needs child of all different, there's all different types of special needs, and wondering, can they do it? And I keep telling them, yes, you can. You know your child better than anybody else. Yeah. And so I wanted to see what type of insights or suggestions that you ladies could give to us. I'm not sure who wants to start first.
If I make faces, I'm looking to see if I can fix something. No, I can't see it. Either one
Devin goes first.
Okay, I'm from professional home educator, and I will tell you I have no good experience with special needs, but I love finding mamas who do, because I like finding mamas resources. And Heather's awesome, and Elise is my new friend, and I have heard awesome things about her. So I'm here to learn. So y'all don't look at me. So
yeah.
So maybe Elise and Heather can introduce themselves. I guess that would be a good place to start.
Absolutely. My name is Elise Kilgore. Initially, I was a child adolescent therapist with Alabama Psychiatric Services and worked with families and students. Many families would come in, especially having like an IEP or homeschooled families, and we would look at interventions to help different things that families were wrestling with. Sometimes it had to do with energy or just being able to sit still long enough and focus. And so we would work on that. One of the things that was really tricky for me to be able to help with was when that individual had dyslexia or hyperlexia, couldn't read or image or remember pictures, and actually left that job to work at Lindenwood Bell Learning Center in Birmingham. And I spent about 8 to 9 years helping families and students who had difficulty with reading and processing and comprehending. Our students had diagnosis of, hyperlexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, autism. So a lot of different students from 5 to, we even had adults come in. Then I moved into homeschooling at a co-op that was initially based out of Homewood, and now it's in Vestavia, called Creative Scholars, and have been able to use those skills in the homeschooling community for the past 4 or 5 years. Additionally, I started a tutoring business so that people can connect to learn more about how to do it from their home. So I can help individuals who want to learn the methods that I know to do that for their children, or I can help tutor children with special needs. One of the things that additionally along this path is I found that Alabama, unlike Mississippi, Arkansas, and Florida, doesn't have an education savings account for families whose children have special needs, similar to the Gardner Scholarship in Florida. And a group of us came together and started to work about 2 years ago, started to work towards legislation so that Alabama could have that opportunity for parents to take those monies and deposit them into their bank account, and that would otherwise have been used for their school funding without hurting public schools. And then parents who need services and need those monies to pay for them could withdraw that money and use it for occupational therapy, physical therapy, and tutoring, all different things that might be tricky or hard to get maybe from your school or do yourself. So that's a little bit about my history and what I've been doing. My son has PKU, so he has special needs. And as far as his brain development, we mainly work with his ADHD and focus. So some of the things that I bring to the table as a suggestion are there are 2 programs that I provide at a different cost than, say, Linda Mood Bell. But you can also look at those programs through Gander, and they're called Sing Stars, where if your student is having difficulty reading, you can work through the program, and if they have difficulty seeing their sight words, like remembering sight words, or they're flipping letters, or adding S's or substituting words and having difficulty reading, when you use the Sing Stars program, it rewires their brain to see those letters in the correct order, or to not replace the words. UAB did a study where a lot of families from across the state and some out of state came to UAB, and they did a brain scan. And prior to doing the Sing Stars instruction, those children diagnosed with autism were having difficulty reading. And then they did instruction for 6 months and were able to read at least a grade level higher. And there was a brain scan done, and they could see how the gray and the white matter in their brains were wired differently. So it is a program that will change the neural networks of someone's mind, and often that people come to at the very end of trying everything else, and it works. Visualizing and verbalizing helps you if you read but you cannot comprehend the information. You may have a student who will read beautifully, and then you'll say, well, what was that story about? And they can't tell you, or maybe they have difficulty answering questions, that you ask them. And this program helps children to picture, or students to picture what they're reading. Also, a lot of these, I guess, interventions will also help with writing. So I have a student is brilliant. He can read on a 12th grade, he can read pretty much on a college level, and he's in the 9th grade. He has autism, high functioning autism. But all of that has been difficult for him to write on paper. And so by using the visualizing and verbalizing program, we're able to get more concrete imagery onto that paper. He went from kicking and screaming on the floor to writing independently. And then, of course, there's On Cloud 9, which works for math. So if some people have difficulty with their math, like picturing how it works and the processes, I've spent a lot of time helping students overcome those hurdles through those programs, as well as in classrooms in my homeschooling co-op. So I'm happy to answer any questions people have if they're facing those kinds of difficulties, and or pass on those tools or training, because I know out of a center it's very expensive, and want to make it accessible.
Me.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Elise. And Heather, you want to tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll open it up for questions?
So I am a veteran homeschool mom of 16 years. I graduated my last child last May. She's been at this but I was kind of thrown into the homeschool scene by my oldest was at a private school where he had been at for about 2 years, and he started having a lot of behavioral issues, a lot of confusion, agitation, things like that. And they got to the point where they didn't know what to do with him. Private schools, kind of don't sometimes. And, kind of handed him to me and was like, well, this is where we end. So I was kind of thrown into the DIY life hacking of homeschooling and figuring out special needs. We knew he had ADHD. We had already been addressing some, attention deficit issues, but also some diet issues at home. And then when we started digging a little bit more, then we started uncovering autism, sensory integration dysfunction, tactile and vestibular issues, just all kinds of stuff, reading processing disorders. And, we were on one income, so we were having to budget everything, and insurance doesn't cover a whole lot. And, they don't let you double up. Like if you need OT, but you also need PT, pick one, you don't get both. So, I kind of tend to look at challenges. I freak out first when I see the challenge, and I'm like, okay, now how can we life hack this? How can we figure out a way where we can function at home, be okay with each other, not try to hurt each other, and actually still make progress going forward? So I'm a big proponent of networking, getting with other moms, getting in other groups, asking questions. If you don't ask, then you're not going to find a solution. You got to be humble. You got to stay humble with it because nobody's an expert on it. But also, finding those resources. There are some wonderful moms out there. There's some wonderful women out there that they have a commitment to the community. They have the commitment to moms and families, and they may have a skill and a talent that, God's blessed them with, and they're wanting to share what they can with others. So I'm a big proponent of that, finding what works for somebody else. Try it. Don't spend all your time and energy reinventing the wheel. If the things that they have found works for them, try it. If it doesn't, then go to the next thing until you find that perfect fit for you and your child. Devin kind of kept pulling me into the homeschool community and the homeschool family because I know it can be a hard life trying to raise a child with special needs because other parents, other kids, other families don't understand that. And your child may be having a stinking meltdown in the middle of the most public place in the world on a field trip, whatever. And other moms are looking at you like, oh my gosh, you need to discipline that child more. And you're like, I am. Are you kidding me? Help me, somebody. But we need each other. We need to have that camaraderie, that fellowship, encouraging each other. So that's kind of where I am. I took the resources that I could afford. And Elise, you're an awesome resource. And I am so glad you are here and you're doing what you're doing and you're providing those resources. From my perspective, I'm the mama at home that just got all of the reports and the diagnoses. And now how do I implement it? And on a budget, affordably. And without him losing his mind, trying to do what the doctor says, and without me losing my mind saying, oh my God, I can't afford all of this, but I've still got to do this for my child to succeed. So I'm the connector at home of getting you from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., putting them in the bed, and then you can sit there and have your prayer time and cry and then face the next day.
Yeah, that's what I love about the homeschool community is in every area, everyone says network. We are here to help each other. We are all in this together. And it blows my mind when I first finally decided to do the same thing. Our daughter was in public school at first, and we jumped into homeschooling after she'd already been in there till about halfway through first grade. And I was scared, afraid, but it's been an awesome journey. And we adopted a little boy that we're actually dealing with the special needs right now, where my husband, he's blowing up my phone. Hey, ask this. And so I have a question. He has a lot of energy and hard to get him to focus. So I'm thinking ADHD, not diagnosed, just kind of looking. Do you guys have any tips or tricks to get him to be able to, we got him the wiggle seat and just to help him focus, to move on,
I don't know if Heather, I think I've seen a lot of success so my son has that. And so we actually have a miniature trampoline in our den area. So we give him like work and then jump breaks, work, jump. And that helps because if he works for a certain set amount of time, then he knows that he can get his energy out. Sometimes fidgets or like things he can squeeze. And I heard you say you have the wiggle seat.
And that has helped. That has definitely helped. He's not allowed to play with it. It is when it's school time, you sit on your wiggle seat.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then sometimes breaking down assignments into smaller tasks, like they know they don't have to focus as long. So instead of like, if there's a concept for math, instead of doing 30 problems, maybe just doing, like 10 and then take a break. Breaking down tasks has been helpful. Also, sometimes if they can verbally, and if it's okay for them not to write, if they can give a verbal response to get that energy out. So those are some of the things that I've seen work with both my students and my son. And I had a student who used to go swimming. I know things are kind of different with people getting out now, but they would either go to the playground or go swimming and things prior to, say, what was a tutoring session, and getting that energy out prior was super helpful.
That's a great idea.
So for us, what we would do, the participation and reward cycle, absolutely. If you give mama 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or daddy 10 minutes, 15 minutes on this, then we'll take a 5-minute break, whatever that time frame is. We would do that too. We would have breakfast and then, give everybody a few minutes, brush teeth, get clothes on. We'd go for a walk around the neighborhood for 30, 45 minutes. And then we'd sit down and we'd start. I would try to tackle our hardest, most challenging subject first and save the things that they really like and they really engage with as little reward periods during the day. After we would come in from our walk, I would also go ahead and knock out our devotion time. And Eric struggled with reading or even seeing the point of reading, having a desire to read. And I really needed to gauge, what he was absorbing and applying and the progress that he was making. So, after about 15, 20 minutes of Bible time, or in that 15, 20 minutes of Bible time, I would go around and each of them would either, read a little bit of a story or something like that. And if he's turning upside down and hanging off on the couch but he still has the book and he's reading, okay, we're making progress. Bless God. So, oral quizzes, like Elise said, when we first brought him home, we didn't know, we thought he was being obstinate, but he didn't have the hand strength to hold a pencil. So the teacher was thinking that whole time that it was a behavioral issue, that he just didn't want to write because he was objecting to it so strongly. Well, we actually found out when we had a PT evaluation, he had no hand strength. And so he couldn't hold the pencil, he couldn't write. And then there was sensory issues with the pen and the paper and just that movement and stuff. So, creatively working with them, I think Devin had sent me a mama that had some questions about teaching them their math and ABCs and things like that. And they were just struggling and fighting the whole way through. Finding those creative ways to engage them. They like finger paint, have them paint it. They like certain candies, get them to spell it out or do math with the candies. But energy is a huge thing. There was times where Eric was running circles in the living room, getting his energy out, and I'm doing his spelling test while he's running those circles around my living room. Take it how you can get it. But I understand that daddies are more like, let's sit down and reason together, son, but there's a really great YouTube channel too, which I'm another huge proponent of YouTube. There's so much on YouTube. There is a daddy on there. I can't remember his name, but it's Dads and Autism, where he's talking about different stages of his growth in his relationship with his son. And at first, he really looked at it as like a challenge, a struggle, something negative, something, that he didn't think they were ever going to be able to get past. And he started just taking little bits and pieces during the day to try to just engage with his son and see things from his son's perspective. Like he'd get down on the floor with him, or if there was a special interest, one child I know loves trains, and, the mama takes him to go see and hear the trains, maybe once or twice a week. But that one moment of engagement that meets his interest, that meets something that is important to him, and then they're able to engage and connect, and that kind of opens the verbal window for that child, especially if that child deals with speaking or verbalization issues. So always working with the energy.
Right. And we have a question from Harley. She says, Elise, my daughter has ASD and struggles with comprehension and writing. She hates it, but does read well. She's an incoming 9th grader. This is my concern as a homeschooling mom. We will be using the Celsius Academy starting next week. Any advice is appreciated. And then she added, we have done graphic novels, which helps visual, but translating it into paper is hard for her. She has a hard time picking out the important core part of a story.
That's a great question. As far as looking at, I love that she reads beautifully. Just like we were mentioning, that her symbol imagery is strong, which means that she can picture the letters and obviously is able to read fluently. As far as comprehending, one of the things that the difference is if you say, I saw a red ball rolling down a hill. And a lot of times, like, you may have a picture in your mind of what that looks like. So you may see the red ball is, this big, and it's a blue day outside, and the hill is green, and the hill is this tall. A lot of times individuals can read information, but those pictures are very difficult for them to create. And that's, those pictures are necessary and help with that reading comprehension, and also the ability to write or to picture and put those words on paper. The visualizing and verbalizing program can be done with your school curriculum. It can be applied to whatever subject that a student is taking. So, for example, at our co-op, I teach, and I try to use high imagery language to help students picture, especially in physical science, because there's so many processes involved. So I would be more than happy to pass on that program to do alongside the curriculum. I would be happy just to spend some time talking about how I can teach you to do that program, or give you some other tips and tricks. If you would like to reach out to me, I'm happy to provide my email to talk a bit further. My best experience with getting, say, my son or my students to be able to read and comprehend and write better come from that particular evidence-based approach.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And Harley, if you want to reach out, I would appreciate it so much, she says. So yes, we'll definitely get you guys connected.
Okay, great.
So, and then sorry, I had another one coming through privately. Is there any ideas, tips, tricks, or for dieting to help with this child with obviously, don't give them sugars, don't give them soda, that kind of thing. But is there anything else that you guys have noticed that could help calming?
I noticed that, I'm sorry, what was the last part?
Naturally versus jumping into medications.
So do you know how old the child is? Because all of them kind of respond to things a little bit differently.
It's my child. My husband's sending me messages.
Oh, okay.
He's 8 years old, but he's from another country, so he's smaller and mentally behind American kids from where the standards. So 8, but he's probably 6-year-old-ish size.
So what I found with Eric is that even if these children, you do like allergy testing or dietary testing or things like that, which we did that with Eric, a lot of them have sensitivities to wheat and dairy and processed products. So I know it's a little bit more expensive sometimes to do organic or to do, fruits and vegetables, especially if they protest with certain items in their diet. We did the shredding the zucchini and putting them in gluten-free brownies, or carrots.
Uh-huh.
we just tried to find creative ways to include more vegetables in what he was eating and eliminate the wheat and the dairy. It's a little easier now. You know, that was 15, 20 years ago that we were doing that with Eric, and the choices then were just not great. But now you have just wonderful choices for that. But what we found is that a lot of kids with autism, sensory integration dysfunction, you know, sometimes like a Down syndrome or other type of metabolic or neurologic disabilities, their bodies don't know how to process the processed ingredients and the additives and different things, and it can build up to a toxic level in their system. And what you'll find, Carol Kranowitz also has a YouTube channel, but she also has a book called The Out of Sync Child. And she discusses how some of these food additives and things build up in a child's system and can show out in the form of external behavioral reactions. And when you think you're dealing with a behavior in a child, you may actually be dealing with an allergic reaction. And red food colorings, food dyes, things like that. And Eric was dealing with all of that. It affected eczema. You know, he would break out for just weeks and weeks, months at a time and have just horrible rashes. So it just really being diligent on that, but not driving yourself like completely up a wall mad. Some good natural supplements that we did. I don't know if anybody's seeing a Defeat Autism Now doctor, or maybe a nutritionist, physician, or, you know, any type of holistic advisor, but you may want to check with them for age groups of child. I don't want to prescribe anything,
Right.
but ginger and turmeric was really good. I don't know why, but together in the same capsule seems to work better than taking ginger separately and turmeric separately. So ginger and turmeric is together, they're very good anti-inflammatories. You know, vitamin E, anything that's going to help a cell to flush out those toxins, but also create health within that cell, create good, healthy cell walls. I know Devin is probably going to know some of these things. Keratin, I said the vitamin E, but you got to be careful with fat soluble versus water soluble things, especially in a child, because the fat soluble, those will build up in their system and those can reach different levels that we need to be worried about. But I would just research anything that would help a cell wall. We did calcium and magnesium. That was also very helpful. Eric had problems with sleep. So we have added in magnesium taurate for him. I'm trying to think of some others. I know older students can use ginkgo biloba, and that will help with, you know, neurological functioning, memory, attention, recall, things like that. But I would eliminate some of the carby stuff, anything that's got gluten, anything too much dairy, and just really focus on creative ways of getting more vegetables in their system. Water is big. And I know a lot of the kids, Eric would gag at water. So he wanted to drink Cokes or Gatorade or something like that. And what we don't realize is a lot of these kids nowadays, I mean, even neurotypical kids that are in high school, middle school, they run around dehydrated all the time because they're drinking the sports drinks, they're drinking the sodas, they're drinking all the other stuff except for water. And the only way that you can really effectively flush out a cell is to put the water back in the cell. You know, our bodies are 70% water, and a cell is 70% to 80% water. So, you know, flushing that out.
Right.
I would that's excellent. And I think the only thought that I have had would be protein in the morning. Protein is very helpful. So my son actually has PKU, so he can't metabolize protein very well. But he has like a supplement through his metabolic formula. And so if you have a child who might be allergic to, milk, and maybe they're doing a different kind of, or they're lactose intolerant, or they, if they can have some form or substitute for protein, it is one thing that will stabilize their blood sugar and things, to be able to focus more. But obviously everything Heather said, absolutely, just any way you can decrease inflammation in the body and help the cells be healthy will contribute to like your mental acuity and things. I know there are certain companies that sell all these like Arbonne, and it's there's another one. We have like certain minds, like formulas that you can get in a like a pill form. But I think if you can do it whole foods, like Heather's saying, or through that's very wise.
Eric had mitochondrial dysfunction where all those toxins would build up into his system, and it created a really, really slow process in the cell. And it's called a comorbid, disorder, along with autism or some other, like I said, the metabolic type disabilities. Like Elise was saying, they may have a faster breakdown of protein, or if their muscle mass is weak, and their growth and development is kind of delayed, then they're having a hard time getting protein and processing it and using it in their body. I would be careful though with research your protein powders or mixes or whatever you do. Eric is incredibly allergic to excessive, I think it's the lactic acid or something that's in egg powder or egg protein. Now, if we get organic eggs, cage-free eggs, yard eggs, then he's fine with that. But if you get store-bought eggs or egg product, then that acid is in higher concentrations in that product, and it'll cause other reactions, itching, behavioral issues, rashes, just agitation. So yeah, I would check on that. I know. You might want to look at 5-HTP. Like I said, I'm not saying giving your child any of this, research it.
That's right.
5-HTP, pycnogenol, all of these are natural supplements. The ginger and turmeric is awesome. I'll think of some others later. And we did do small doses of melatonin, because sleep is very important for health in the body and recovery time at night. And a lot of these kids have a hard time being able to really get into a good sleep.
Yes, great advice, ladies. Thank you. And everyone that's watching live too, bring in your questions. I don't want it all about me and what I'm interested in. So if you guys have questions or anything, please let us know.
I know one thing I'm asked often, that y'all might be able to address a little bit, is a lot of times they want to know about IEPs and if they can get services through the public school system. I know me and Heather talk about that a lot, and I haven't Elise is my, I wanted to almost say my daughter's name, which is Elicia. It's almost the same thing. But anyway, can y'all go over what you've seen and what parents should expect?
I'm going to I know Heather has had some very extensive experiences with walking in and ensuring that her son has the benefit of those services. If I want in your county, so a lot of times it, yeah, Heather, I was saying, I know from the last time we spoke together, and I'm happy to talk about it as well, but I know that you have recently had, or over the years, have had some very specific conversations with people in the county about how you were successful at that. So I wanted to see if you would like to go first.
Sure. So Devin, I sent Devin a couple of links this past week that I came across. There are actually some Facebook events that some of them are online, Zoom conferences and things, but it seems to be some mamas reaching out to other mamas that are also homeschooling that have some little mini workshops on IEPs and how to get services through their school system wherever they're at. It may be in another school system or another area, but you might want to still connect with those little conferences the little online events and see what you can find. You can always glean good information from another mama who's gone through that and done that. So Eric, when he was diagnosed, like I said, that was 15, 20 years ago, and there really wasn't a whole lot of forefront information on autism or what services were available. And Alabama, I hate it, has been kind of behind on what they offer for Alabama services. But CRS, Children's Rehabilitative Services, is a division of Alabama Department of Rehab Services. And they have little clinics that they offer for a low fee or no fee, especially if your insurance accepts it or if you're already seeing a physician that may recommend that and write a prescription for your child to get those services. But, checking with, call the school system, see what they offer. What you would have to do, it's going to be personally, you kind of have to weigh that pros and cons if it's something that you really want to pursue. If you're going to have to sacrifice something that you find personally beneficial at home or in your homeschool curriculum in order to get connected with whatever resource they're providing. A lot of times they want to have some type of oversight into your program and into your home and into what you're teaching to make sure that everything's up and up. So you weigh that, but it doesn't hurt to ask. It doesn't hurt to find out what they're offering. It doesn't hurt to find out resources. And maybe if you can connect with those resources behind the scenes. I know we reached out to a student, a behavioral sciences student at UAB to come down here once a month and do social skills therapy classes for the kids. So we broke them into age groups. We had 5 to 9, 9 to 11, 11 to 14, and she would have 45 minutes with each group in a group setting and do the social skills therapy classes with them. That was the best thing, one of the best resources that we ever had. But it was a group of mamas that pulled together and reached out to this resource, and you have strength in numbers to reach out and see what you can work on. And everybody, it was a small fee because we were all paying for her time to be down here. But networking and being creative with those resources. By law, state law, they have to provide some type of resources for your child. That's rights law. It's a red book, about 8.5 by 11. Should be able to find it online somewhere or at the library. And by law, they have to provide some type of services for your child. Find out what your insurance will pay. A lot of times those resources will work with you if your insurance will at least pay some of it, work out some kind of resource or ability to get your child into them and see them. But the IEP, you're basically writing out what taking your recommendations from your child's diagnosis, what they're dealing with and they're struggling with. And then you're kind of reverse engineering a plan of, by this point, I want to get them here. So what is a reasonable process that we can go by? And mastermind, brainstorm with Elise, brainstorm with Stephanie, brainstorm with Devin, brainstorm with some other mamas that are a couple years ahead of you of what they have had to do step by step by step, not huge insurmountable, expectations, but reasonable expectations of at least by here, I want them to know the alphabet, or at least by here, I want them to be able to do addition and subtraction and break it down into small pieces. What is it? It's not Chronos, it's Weaver curriculum, but there's some scope and sequences that you can get online. I think Encyclopedia Britannica even has a grade sequence that you can access online, or Wikipedia maybe, that you can read for 3rd grade. And I don't recommend shoving your child in a 3rd grade box, because not even a neurotypical child fits in that particular box. But find out the things, just read that grade of, by the end of this, I want them to try to be able to do such and such and so. And fit that in with your child's, what they're able to do, and not frustrate them. You want to stretch what they can do, but also reinforce their weaknesses to where they'll grow, and stretch them and pull them. But I would look at some of those online resources for IEP and kind of reverse engineer it and see what that plan, you can write that plan for yourself and look with Wright's Law. Wright's Law also goes over how to write an IEP. And then that may help you with that open window to get the access to the services that the school system would provide. And they may even tell you, well, if you'll just put this word in here or this verbiage in here, then that may open this door up that otherwise has been closed till now.
That's excellent. And I know, so personally speaking, I went with a friend of mine whose daughter was not services at her local school. And one of the resources that was most beneficial is to find out what you're lawfully, do from the school system. So she in particular, we were looking at for her, like what a 504 plan is. And I'll make sure that I get that link. In Alabama, they have it written out. So, and we went through the, you're allowed certain amount of breaks. You're allowed maybe just like your tests can look different, but still count. And I know for homeschooling, we have a whole lot of, variation. So with my students, I might have a student in the classrooms at Creative Scholars. We have people at different learning levels and even grade levels, but they may be in, say, a high school class, but I know I teach to the students in various ways. And I know where each student is progressing or where their strengths and weaknesses are. So I might realistically know, hey, I know that this student who's has been looking at his hedgehogs on his computer is completely listening to me and can repeat every single detail and is like light years ahead with the information and is super smart, but he has difficulty putting it down on paper. So I know there are certain things listed, and I'll find that website and make sure I get it to you all, that says, it helps people who learn differently or process differently or deliver information differently to get credit for that. And then as far as IEPs, just like Heather was saying, so for me, I actually do assessments, and it will basically tell you how your child is processing information and what grade level they're at. And when we set goals, let's say my son is in 4th grade, but he's reading on a kindergarten level. So I know it will take 100 hours of this specific instruction to get him to a 1st grade level. But we set intermittent goals. And so just like Heather is saying, I can help people look at, what grade level they're processing information on, how much, what is a realistic goal for someone who's having difficulty reading and comprehending, or just being able to words, or difficulty with their levels in math. So there are people out there who can help you with how to write an IEP. And also one of the tools I offer is the ability to kind of diagnose, like, where are we? How long would it take to get somewhere different?
There is a group that I just found. You can join it on Facebook. It's called Framework and Formula for Writing Meaningful IEPs. And then there was another one that I sent to the group. It's IEP Accommodations for Remote Learning. So both of those are Facebook events or a Facebook group. And that can help you with writing that, formulating that, putting that terminology in that. And Elise is a perfect resource to help you write it and put everything in it that you need to put in it. I will say this, a friend of mine, her IEP for her son said, cross the street with 75% accuracy. Think about that. what you going to do with the other 25%? Okay, so be carefully think and plan out what you're putting in your IEP. Okay, don't just put certain comments that are like, really, let's think about this. We want 100% accuracy in some things. But yeah, and it's a plan. I mean, it's kind of like with what Devin said. This plan is supposed to help you access whatever resources may be available to you, so you can utilize your tax-funded dollars that you're paying for to appropriate that for your child. There is the pros and cons. There is a give and take. You have to decide for you if that's going to be a good exchange. But it's still supposed to be a pathway to success for your child. And just like every homeschool mom that's been doing this for a number of years, we sit down during the summer, during the beginning of the year, and we write out our plan, what we want our child, how we want our child to be successful, the experiences that we want them to have, you know, what they're struggling on. So we need to spend a little bit more time focusing on that. And then what they're doing okay with, and we're going to maintain and grow that going forward. But it's just that plan for success for that year, tailored for your child. But I understand with the IEP and the 504s of wanting to get that access. I guess the reason I come from it so adamantly of just make sure that it is a good exchange, that you are satisfied with that exchange, is because so many times we shoot ourselves and our own abilities down, and we think, I don't have a college degree. I don't have a degree in special education. I don't have a degree in psychology or whatever that is, so I'm not going to be able to do that. Who says? You know, like Devin says, God gave you your child for a reason. He knew the strengths, the talents, the skills, the abilities that you would have by this point that you had your child. He knew how tenacious, how stubborn, how mama bear you were about your baby. And he knows that your goal is for your child to be successful. Yes. And don't sell yourself short. Don't sell your child short. Don't sell your relationships and the resources that you have around you, that God put around you long before you got here to this spot, short. Know that he has made a provision in somehow, some way for you to be successful long before you even got here. Yes. So, and if that resource is IEP in school, in the school system, then again, bless God and he'll help you to get there to that.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then mamas can do it.
Yes.
Absolutely. And you
do what?
Use your village. We're here to help each other. Even if I have to call my friend and cry, I don't know what I'm doing. You have the comfort in your friends and help each other out. So,
and I think, you know, since every child is different and learns differently, homeschooling is amazing because you can tailor your plan specifically to your child's learning style, special needs, and no one knows your child like you do. No one knows exactly, you know, running around in circles and doing the spelling test. You know, that works, and you can do that, and I love that. And you know, some people get upset if their child, you know, in a regular school needs to sit under their desk and read. I let my students sit under their desk and read because I know that works. So I think that, you know, like Heather, you all are saying, is you are the expert on your child. And there are so many resources out there. And you, that communication and ability to tailor instruction is a huge gift to your child. And yes, definitely sell short. Yeah.
For us, a resource like Elise has, to me, matched more what I wanted for my child, and that flexibility of being able to find a resource that matched my child's needs and skills than necessarily going through a school system. A school system has a cookie cutter way that they handle each topic and subject and situation. And that may be great for a lot of kids, but with these children, especially with special needs, it is individual and unique to them, just like your fingerprint. Yeah. And you have to work with the lines of their fingerprint. And having those creative resources, I mean, that's why I liked Eric being able to sit underneath the dining room table while I'm reading to him and covering it with a sheet. You want to know why? Because the creative part of his brain was engaged. He was in his cave. He was in his tent. He was in his forest. He was wherever he was at. But the creative part of his brain was engaged, which meant that more parts of his psyche and his neurological makeup was connected. His learning styles were connected with what we were talking about at that moment. So he was absorbing it in more parts of his brain. So, reaching out to these creative resources out of the box, out of the thinking resources, I think is you'll find more camaraderie, more support, more engagement, and more successes doing that honestly than just utilizing whatever resource, cookie cutter resource that may be out there and may be available.
And it's important to remember that school systems have limited budgets. And when you're a homeschooler, they're going to put you at the bottom of the list. So
yes,
I'm like, and it's not, I mean, in my perspective, it's not that they're trying to disrespect you. It's like they've got people already registered and they have limited funds. So I do usually suggest that you look for creative ways.
And right now with COVID, because
it's a good place to start, but don't feel like you're limited there.
Right. Don't feel like you're locked into that. And working with the school system too, because on top of working with the school system and being a realtor, I am aware of some of the things, the funding things the school system is dealing with. Right now with COVID, those students that are directly enrolled, those are the highest priority. And right now they're having to do meals, they're having to do technology, they're having to reach out to other type of resources in order to meet those students' needs. So,
yeah.
Well, you guys have had amazing information.
So much wonderful information.
Sorry to kind of getting close to the 2:00 hour for the next session, but thank you so much for this information. Everyone that's watching live, if you come up with extra questions, type them in under the video and we'll make sure to get Heather and Elise connected. Harley will reach out and we'll get you two connected as well. But
and the sessions that Heather mentioned, I will pull the links and put them under this video sometime today so that people can find them.
Awesome. Well, thank you so very much, ladies.
Thank you, mamas.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Awesome.
Bye.